Hello and welcome to this edition of Upfront. I'm your host, Nancy Wilmot. And today's guest is someone that I'm sure most of you will recognize, very active in the community, and she has been a guest on this program in the past. I'm very pleased to introduce Ellen Frood, Executive Director of Sage Haven Society, formerly known as ACAUS. Ellen, welcome back to
Thank
Upfront.
you so much. Nice to be here with you today.
Now, Sage Haven always has so much going on, but I would like to start by talking about the new building that is going up on Hollywood Street. You and I have talked about this before, but I'm guessing that a lot of our viewers don't know about it. What are you building, Alan?
Well, gosh, we're building a 22-unit housing complex, and it will be housing for women and children who've been impacted by violence in their lives in some way. It's a combination of a studio, one, two, and three-bedroom apartments, and there will be 22 units altogether. And very excited to see it rising from the ground up. We now have walls and a first floor, and they're putting the decking on and getting ready for the second floor. It just is so very exciting. We've been waiting for such a long time to bring this here to Port Alberni, and we're ever grateful to not only BC Housing but also the city of Port Alberni for their support throughout the project.
Now, this is so exciting, but I want to clarify as well. You've had a women's shelter for as long as I can remember. This is different. This is in addition to that, not instead of that.
That is correct. So we will still maintain our transition house, which is a 30-day emergency shelter for women and children, their families. And just so you know, one time we had a 4-generation family come through our house, and it was,
Gosh.
great grandma all the way down to a little baby 2 months old. So pretty neat way to support people in family units. So that's a 30-day, and in that period of time, we're trying to help people find housing or return to housing or let them make decisions on where they're going to go in their life. So after that, we step to what's called second stage housing. So this project that we're building is a second stage housing project. And what that means is that our program clients will come to us and they will stay with us for a period between 6 to maybe 18, depending on their circumstances. And in that period of time, we're just going to work with them on some life skills, self-esteem, help with budgeting, financial literacy, do cultural work with them, depending on where they're at, a whole range of things, but just help people, get themselves into a space where they'll develop also a rental history, by the way, which is an important thing because that's pretty tough. And we'll try and guide them into market housing somewhere down the line. Fingers crossed that that's going to exist because we know how tough it is to find. But yeah. So it is not intended on being
Boy.
permanent housing. It is a next step out of our transition house or emergency shelter into different independent living.
And do tenants have to come through the shelter system? Or can they be referred by other agencies? How do they
Yeah,
how
it,
do they
it
get an
basically
apartment?
is people who would fit our mandate. And so the mandate is, again, women and children impacted by domestic violence and or who may be at risk of violence. And so certainly the obvious portal is the transition house. However, it may be from within other programs we have here in the agency, or it could be through other agencies who are referring people to us.
This is, as I've said before, this is very exciting, and I feel like this is your
Yeah.
baby, Ellen. I mean, you've spearheaded this
Yeah,
one from the
yeah,
very
it
beginning.
is. It is my baby, but I shouldn't say that because it's never all about me. It's about all the people that work here who make this happen and a great board of directors that supports our programs and services. But when I first came here, we entered into a strategic plan, and one of the things that we put in the strategic plan was we were going to build second stage housing. And I can recall saying, "Oh, we can do that, no problem whatsoever." Not even thinking about what the cost of something like this might be. We'll just have a capital campaign and we'll raise all that money. Well, thank heaven for me that the government, provincial government, announced funding, and that we were lucky enough to be in the first round. That made this a reality. Because honestly, I'm not sure. This is about a $7 million project. I'm not sure if I could have raised $7 million. Oh, yeah, yeah. But it's good to have dreams. That's for sure.
Yeah, that would have been a lot of bake
Oh,
sales. I know you
yeah.
don't rely on bake sales, but that's a
Oh
lot of
boy,
tickets
boy.
or bake sales
Yes,
or
yes,
or
it would.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you mentioned that you do have other programs at Sage Haven. Let's talk a little bit about that because you do so much, too much for me to go through. I'll miss something.
I
So,
know. Well, I think I always miss something when I talk about it too. But so for starters, we have a community resource drop-in center right up on Third Avenue where our administration offices are. And that resource center is open to the public, men, women, children, whoever wishes to come and join us. And it is a safe haven for some. It's a warm place. We offer coffee, hot chocolate, tea. Sometimes we have food and snacks. Not um, uh, clothing. We have clothing, socks, hats, mitts, winter wear. We've got some pouches right now, rain pouches or ponchos, pardon me, that have a mylar blanket lining, and so helping people stay warm, particularly the kind of weather we're having now. And a whole range of other programs. So somebody might come in and say, I don't know how to apply for income assistance, so we can assist with that. We can help people filling out applications for BC housing. We can help with referral to our programs, or some people just come to sit and be part of a neighborhood of friends, which is what it is very much. So everybody looks out for everybody in there. So, obvious way for people to come through the door, and through our drop-in center, we may receive referrals to other programs. So other programs include our community-based victim services. So that's where there has been a violent domestic violence or an assault, and so criminal activity. And so that person works within the individual, the survivor, and takes them through the court system, lets them know what to expect. In many cases, they'll introduce them to the Crown Counsel, and may just go and sit in court as cases are being brought forward, just to support, not to offer any advice or to do anything, but just to be there physically. So walking beside them. Our victim services worker, is very talented and very knowledgeable. So her name's Sarah, by the way. She's a wonderful person. So after victim services, we have a program called Stop the Violence, and that's counseling for women who have or are in domestic violence relationships, or our survivors have come out of that. And it's about a 10-week. We're not clinical counselors, so again, it's what they call a psychoeducational program. We work with them to identify, explain what abuse is, because oftentimes we're the first ones that will identify what abusive behaviors are. I mean, we all know about the hitting. That's normal. Everybody knows that's what that kind of violence is. But withholding money, we're taking a cell phone away, restricting somebody to a house, hurting pets, psychologically being unkind. These are all forms of domestic violence. And so we work with people in those areas. So that's for the mums and or single people. A PEACE program is PEACE stands for Prevention, Education, Advocacy, Counseling, and Empowerment, and it's a program for children who've witnessed abuse. And we do work with lots of kids, and they do. We think, hey, as parents, oh no, they didn't hear what that happened, but honest to goodness, kids hear everything. They have big ears, and they don't understand what's going on with mommy and daddy. And oftentimes they'll blame themselves and say, it's my fault if I was a little bit better. So it's helping kids again understand what it is, that it's not their fault, to identify, even sometimes we use play therapy, sand therapy, and play therapy, art therapy. And so lots of times it's described in the pictures and how they play, what's happening in their home. We help kids try to understand how to be safe in the home. And we tell them that if we have a fear that they're in danger, that we do have a duty to report to the ministry, MCFD. So, again, very broad. And so along with that, then we have an outreach worker. She does adult and youth outreach. And she spends one day a week at ADSS and one day a week at 8th Avenue Learning Center. And so that's the youth portion largely of what she does, although she'll see other youth in the community for different numbers of reasons. And then the adult outreach again is maybe somebody's come into our community resource drop-in center and they're just in a panic. They don't know where to go, what to do. Then we'll move them over to our outreach and let her help ground somebody and try to identify what the needs are. Because if you're in total chaos in your life, we can't send you to counseling. We need to get you grounded and help you find out where you're going. So then we have a sexual assault response program. And that's a program where we have a coordinator, and what she does is she trains a group of volunteers. And when there is a sexual assault, we will receive a phone call from the forensic nurse, and we will meet a volunteer of the program will meet the forensic nurse at the hospital and stay with the individual as long as they would like, in the room or in the waiting room, wherever they want to be. They carry a backpack with them that's full of all sorts of things: clothing, clean clothing, socks, leggings, probably a water bottle, some snacks, and information brochures on the services that are available or that they might access. But sometimes the role is just to be quietly sitting there as a
Yeah.
supportive person. It's pretty traumatic for a survivor of a sexual assault. And so, really, 42 years we've been offering service here in the community with that as the very humble beginnings, and all of the other programs have grown out of
Wow.
that. For yeah.
Holy cow. I did not try even attempt to go through that list of services because there are so many. It's amazing. And a lot of them are services that I don't even think anybody would be aware of until they're in a situation and someone appears almost magically as a volunteer to help
Hmm,
them through
hmm.
things.
Yeah, very
That's
true.
that's
And
amazing.
also, what's important to understand is that we really wrap our services around somebody. So they may come to us as a survivor of a sexual assault, but we may find that there are children who've been exposed to the violence, and we make sure they're referred into the peace program for kids. And once the court stuff is through, they may need counseling, so we'll refer them to our SCV counselor. So we're really, really good about wrapping services. And there's another thing I want to be really clear on: is if it's not something that we do, we will immediately refer to another agency that we know covers services. So, a post-traumatic stress, or where somebody needs clinical counseling, we'll refer them out to another agency and make sure that they're taken care of in some
Wow.
way. We can't do everything. We like to say we do, but we can't.
My gosh, Ellen, it sounds like you're almost doing everything. My goodness. Now, a lot of
Uh,
these positions are staff positions, but you also have volunteers working with you.
Yes, the volunteers, well, as I mentioned, with our sexual assault response program, we have a group of volunteers that work with us. And of course, we have an amazing group of volunteers who sit on our board of directors, for which I'm very grateful for their guidance and support. That's very important. And then we have volunteers that come into our drop-in center. So um, one person comes in and she knits, and the people sit at the table and knit or crochet or do some kind of craft with her there. There are other people that have come in the past to do yoga. Somebody came in at one
Mm.
time and was doing hair cutting. We never know. We're working with our First Nation community to start bringing in some more cultural work to do, and talks, and elders coming into the center as well. So Nancy, you could say, I'm really good at, I don't know, you just pick something you're good at that you can sit down at a
Yeah,
table. And it's really interesting to see, as people are just sitting at the table, the kinds of
yeah,
conversations that they have, and the
yeah.
sharing and the caring they have for each other also. So yeah.
It
Yeah.
strikes me that volunteering for something like that would be just as valuable for the volunteer. Think of the community that they would become a part of, and that's
Huh,
exciting. Now,
yeah.
many of the agencies that I talk to have really been hit by COVID. They've lost a lot of their volunteers who are no longer coming out. Is that the case with Sage?
Well, we absolutely had to close our center down largely. We operated through a small door, people came to us. And so we did lose volunteers as a result of that. And people are still concerned about that,
Of course.
community public the contact. So we are having less people volunteer with us at this time. Not to say that we won't have any more, but they're always welcome with their ideas.
Excellent. And they can just give
Yeah,
you a
we have somebody helping us. Yeah, and we have somebody else helping us redress our window up on the
yeah.
third up here in the old Woodwards building. And so, there are different things that people can do.
Lovely. Now, it's a few years since we spoke. The pandemic was just beginning. We were all just getting used to doing this, to speaking to each other on screens. And you talked about a signal that women can give, not just on screens, but anywhere to alert someone else that they're in danger, that they need some help. Tell me about that.
Yeah, thanks for asking about that. So it's this very simply: you tuck your thumb in, and you curve your fingers down over, right? So you just tuck your thumb
Yeah.
in, and then bring your fingers down over and hold your hand up. And that is a universal sign
Yeah.
for help, for
Wow.
assistance,
So if you're
right?
walking through a mall or down the street or in a lineup at a theater and the woman in front of you does this behind her back or somewhere probably so her partner can't see, what should you do?
Yeah. Well, there's a number of things that you can do. I mean, you could stop and say hi to the person, say, "Hi, how you doing today? Everything okay?"
Yeah.
Maybe to create some kind of diversion. And or if you see that there's some kind of absolute, danger for the person that seems to be developing, then you can certainly call for emergency assistance.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
oftentimes it's just that connection to see somebody. I think you asked me one time, what if somebody did it when they came to a drive-through
Y-
and the person
Yeah.
at the drive-through, and I think that's such a difficult thing
Yeah.
to answer that
Yeah.
question. I don't know. It's like, I would say take down the license plate number of the vehicle if you can, and report to
Yeah.
police that you received this emergency signal and it came from a woman in a vehicle with license plate whatever.
Yeah.
So I think we need to be creative and understand the
Yeah.
circumstance that we're in.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's such an important thing to be aware and be aware of not just our own safety, but to help each other stay safe.
Mhm,
Now we've
absolutely.
talked about services, we've talked about the build. Now let's talk about the really big thing coming up February
Mhm.
25th. What is happening?
Oh yeah, well, here we are, coldest night of the year.
Oh, what a great toque this year.
This
I love it.
this is this year's hat. I was thinking, I've got hats from every year. This is I can't remember, but I thought, well, maybe I'll just auction off my hat collection. So many. Put them out. But yes, it's taking place February 25th. It is coldest night of the year, and we're thrilled that this year we're able to do it in person again. Although I will say, if there are groups of people who wish to participate and walk on their own time with their own group of people, that is also still an opportunity. But this is the very first year since the beginning of COVID that that we'll be doing a live event, and we will be having a gathering at the rear of our building on Third, so through the back alley in our parking lot. And there'll be a 2 and a 5K walk. It will be through Northport. There won't be any very big hills to climb. I think it's pretty
Yeah.
safe. Yes, it'll start about 5 o'clock. And as I mentioned, 2 or 5K walk participants can choose which they prefer. And we're going to have Salvation Army helping us out this year. Isn't that
That's
wonderful? I'm so pleased. And they're going to bring their food truck out. And, we were concerned about how would we serve food. We didn't really know. And again, relates back to COVID and how you do everything. But they're in the business of doing that already. And so we'll have chili off the Salvation Army truck and hot coffee and cocoa and water and what have you for everybody once they come back from the walk.
nice. And
Yeah.
this is a
Yeah.
fundraiser. If people out there aren't familiar, this isn't just the coldest night of the year. This is a fundraiser. How does it work?
Yeah. Okay, so yes, it's a fundraiser, and just so you know, our goal right now is $35,000 this year, and we're believe it or not, we're almost at $23,000, which
Oh
makes
my
me feel
gosh.
so pleased. So we've had some great sponsors come forward, and what we're looking for is more teams. So it's a team event where you walk with your friends or your family, and it's a pledge base. So I just go out to my family; they know it's like, oh, here comes Ellen every year, and I'll say it's coldest night of the year, folks, and I'm out there trying to help, and will you support me? And they pledge amounts, and however much they choose to, and then all of these teams report their results. It's online, super easy to register. It just cnoy.org is, and then look for Port Alberni. You can either register a team or support somebody who is already on a team. And lots of people say, well, I can't be there on the 25th. And that's true. Lots of people can't, but you can still support somebody or you can still help raise money for a team. So, we like to say that if every single person that joined a team was able to find 5 donations, that would be the optimum, the absolute best for that. So, in my experience, as I say, I send it out to family members. And it's always a bit of a contest to see how quickly I can get my first
Mm.
$500. And I think I'm not in very good shape this year. But one of my family members actually made a gift of $5,000 a couple of
Wow.
years back, choosing us as the charity that they wanted to support. So, I mean, no amount is too small, and no amount, it really is any amount whatsoever. Somebody says, "Well, all I can give is $5." Well, guess what? The $5 and $5 and $5, it all adds up and makes a huge difference. So, we want as many people to come out and have fun. Oh, the theme this year, I love it. The theme this year is Gather for Goodness.
Oh,
Isn't that
that's
wonderful?
beautiful.
And I know, and so where the dollars go, are 2 areas, one to our transition house and the other to our drop-in center.
Nice. Nice. And I have to say, I don't remember a year where I've heard so much buzz about Coldest Night of the Year, and there are so many corporate sponsors coming on board. This is wonderful.
It is, and I gotta say, kudos and thanks to Colson's. They are back here again. They have been our lead sponsors for 4 years now, and just coming right out in the very beginning to show that support. So we're thankful for everybody in the community who's helping us out, not the least of which is Shaw
Oh,
by doing this, and thank you for that.
we're happy to do it. Um, and I also think it's really, really important because we all know that the last few years, even before COVID, have been particularly hard on a lot of people in the community. And it's fundraisers like this that provide the services to maybe give that helping hand.
Absolutely. And, that's what it is. It's coldest night of the year. It's bringing people out of the cold and inside to help them. So that's obviously both our transition house and our drop-in center are bringing people in out of the cold and helping, you know, support those that are having difficulties. And geez, I mean, we just had a fire and a lot
Oh,
of people were displaced as a result of
yeah,
that.
yeah.
And so, there's a lot of need in this
Oh,
community, that's for sure.
yeah. That was 30 more people in need of shelter, and that's
Yeah.
that's extraordinary.
Yeah.
I just want to put in context how important Coldest Night of the Year is as a fundraiser to Sage Haven Society. Is this just a drop in the bucket or is this a big deal for you?
No, this is a really big deal for us. It's the largest fundraiser that we do every year. Last year was our best year. We're hoping to get better than that this year. It probably accounts for about 40%, maybe more than that, of our
Wow.
fundraising goal for the year.
Wow.
So, yeah, and I'd love to say that we break even on everything, but we definitely have shortfalls, program shortfalls. And if it weren't for this event, we would not know where to find the dollars to help with the programs.
Wow. Well, Ellen Frood, thank goodness you find the place to find the dollars to put on these programs. They're so valuable. They're so necessary in the community. $35,000, Port Alberni. I know we can do it. Of course we can do it. This is Ellen. Come on. Sage Haven Society. We can support this cause.
Absolutely, and you know what? I call Port Alberni is a mighty community. I always say this. I'm not. I haven't lived here my whole life. I had it for 7 years, and almost right from the beginning, I came to Port Alberni and I said, "This is a mighty community," and so their people in Port Alberni have much to be proud of. And
Yeah.
yes,
Ellen, I love that designation, community with a heart, but we are a mighty community
you
with a
are a
heart.
mighty community, absolutely. And we're gathering for goodness for coldest night of the year, and all help bring people in out of the cold.
Oh, what a great way to end the show. Ellen, you got the last word. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Nancy.
And thank you for joining us on this edition of Upfront.
Holy moly, this is the best news of the year, I gotta tell you. We've got our second stage housing under construction, and this is for Sage Haven Society and women and children impacted by intimate partner violence or gender-based violence. 22 units, yeah, and it's a combination of studio, 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. First stage, oftentimes, is when somebody comes to our transition house and that would typically be about a 30-day period of time. The difference between first stage and second is the second stage housing is longer, maybe 6 to 18 months approximately. So in that period of time, we're helping people, prepare themselves for rental market, maybe doing some education, working on self-esteem, what's it like to be a good tenant, financial literacy. Some people never made a budget, so helping with those kinds of things, basic lots of life skills and getting them prepared, and letting moms and kids be together in a very safe environment. When I first came here about 6 years ago, one of the plans was to create second stage housing, and I was very bold, and I said, well, of course we can do this, no problem, we can do this, right? But we didn't have any money. And then about a year later, BC Housing, in their first round, they announced that we were one of the projects that were chosen. So it's been a while, we're waiting for a long time, but good things come to those who wait, and I'm so proud and pleased to be part of a partnership with BC Housing and the City of Port Alberni.